There was a time when Japan Studio was the DNA that made up PlayStation. You could say they were PlayStation's biggest supporters. Not every game was a massive success, and they were never that powerhouse AAA studio PlayStation wanted. But the games they made were unique, memorable experiences. So when Sony shut Japan Studio down in 2021, it was a major controversial decision. Not only to the players and the fans, but to the identity of PlayStation itself. Over the years, things change, and PlayStation has been changing with it, and probably not for the best. This has left us with fewer released games, games developed on massive, risky budgets, and a library of games that are primarily deep, emotional cinematic experiences. Nothing wrong with that, but PlayStation players are craving variety, and Japan Studio delivered on that. Thankfully, in the years since, its legacy is still strong. The talent that Japan Studio cultivated, and the games fans love are still being made in some way. From re-releases to successors, Japan Studio left a huge impact, and these are the games you need to know about. Of course, we couldn't talk about the legacy of Japan Studio without first talking about Team Asobi. After all, they were originally part of Japan Studio. In fact, Team Asobi is what remains of PlayStation in Japan. With the release of Astro on the PlayStation 5, Team Asobi has clearly shown that they can carry the passion Japan Studio put into every single one of their games. Astro signifies everything PlayStation once stood for. It's one joyful experience from start to finish, and not only is this one giant PlayStation celebration, but the love for Japan Studio is ever apparent. The nostalgia itself will make you miss what PlayStation once had, but will also make you happy that you were a part of it. Astro is Team Asobi's first game as a standalone studio, and it's everything PlayStation needs at the moment. Team Asobi likely has a bright future full of more Astro but hopefully the studio can also expand and dive into other Japan Studio IPs like Ape Escape or even a brand new IP. PlayStation needs this developer, and I hope they realize that. Since the original PlayStation, the Hot Shots Golf Everybody's Golf series was once a staple for every PlayStation console, at least until the PlayStation 5. While the series continues to live on in the form of a mobile game in Japan, longtime developer Clap Hands has since moved on with a successor. Originally released through the Apple Arcade, this game was called Clap Hands Golf. However, after the game was released for the Nintendo Switch, the game has since changed its name to Easy Come, Easy Golf. If you're missing Everybody's Golf, this is the game you want to check out. Wacky characters, different courses, unlockable outfits, and caddies. This is what you would expect from Everybody's Golf. Only this time, Easy Come, Easy Golf is a team effort. Pick your golfers and you'll work together on each hole to get the best possible score. However, Clap Hands did not stop there. Back in 2019, they developed Everybody's Golf VR for the PlayStation VR. Moving ahead to 2024, they went back to the VR space with Ultimate Swing Golf for the MetaQuest series of devices. Players can hit the course in free play and training modes, clear missions in challenge mode, or take things online with up to 4 players. So with 2 new golf games under their belt, it's great to see Clap Hands making the games they have been for so long. Hopefully one day we finally get that new Everybody's Golf game. What's amazing these days is that any developer can create a Kickstarter campaign to raise funding to make a game they and fans are passionate about. We almost had a successor from the creator of Parappa the Rapper called Project Rap Rabbit, but the project didn't meet its goal. On the other hand, Patapon fans had the most incredible news with a successor called Ratatan. This comes from the creators of Patapon, and looks to be everything people loved about that game and so much more. The game actually hit its funding goal in less than an hour after launching, and ended its campaign with over $1.4 million raised. Fans can expect this game to arrive April 2025. The same can be said about ARM Fantasia. This is a game from the creators of Wild Arms. The developers aim to recreate that old school JRPG Western punk experience that Wild Arms had. Its Kickstarter launched in 2022 and was successfully funded. And despite the game's development, the developers continue to update the community on a monthly basis. ARM Fantasia is planned to arrive March 2025. But this is what I love about something like Kickstarter. If these developers are passionate about a project, and a major corporation like Sony refuses to make these games, we will go and make a successor. Back when the PlayStation 2 launched in North America, Fantavision was the only first-party launch game. It's not a game that set the world on fire and is pretty forgotten. But I've always found Fantavision to be interesting. It's about chaining color flares, creating combos, and setting off fireworks. Basically, it was a game to showcase the power of the console for the time. 23 years later, and Sony releases the PlayStation VR 2. With it came a sequel called Fantavision 22X. Thankfully, the PSVR 2 is completely optional, but if you love the original, Fantavision 22X is a welcoming return. Surprisingly, Fantavision 22X wasn't developed or published by Sony despite them owning the IP. Instead, Fantavision was licensed to Japanese developer Cosmo Machia. Fantavision 22X follows the same format as the original. Same number of levels progressing from Earth to space and beyond, though presented differently. Even the composer from the original Japanese version returned with an updated score. It's easy to see how much Cosmo Machia honored the work Japan Studio did while also making something new. The game lacks many extra modes in comparison to the original, but is still a fun time. And if you can buy this on sale, it's definitely worth it. Which leads us to Freedom Wars. This 2014 game became one of the most successful titles on the PlayStation Vita and people wanted more. Though unlike Gravity Rush, Sony never followed Freedom Wars with a remaster or even a sequel. Skip ahead to 2024 and it's finally been announced that Freedom Wars Remastered will be hitting the PlayStation 4 and 5, Nintendo Switch, and PC in January 2025. Like Fantavision 22X, Freedom Wars Remastered is licensed by Sony to publisher Bandai Namco. Why Sony themselves couldn't release this remaster will forever be a mystery, but it's also great to see this game return in some way. In fact, original developer Dimps is hopeful that if the remaster is successful, they would love to release a sequel as they have so many ideas. Really, if Fantavision 22X and Freedom Wars Remastered is an indication of Sony's plans for its forgotten IP, I'd love to see them license more of their franchises. Give us new games and re-releases of these classics. If it means we get to see more, why not? It's clear Sony has moved into a different direction, but we're craving these games and licensing is a good way of making this happen. After the release of Silent Hill in 1999, its director Keiichiro Toyama and a number of other Team Silent members would leave to join Japan's studio. Here they would form a team called Project Siren. This resulted in a trilogy of Siren games. Once the team later moved on to Gravity Rush, they were renamed to Team Gravity. After leaving Japan Studio in 2020, Toyama founded Bokeh Game Studio alongside other key Siren developers. The first game from the studio is called Slitterhead. This is a high-speed action horror game that allows players to possess anyone at will, and you'll need to do this in order to get through certain areas. It's certainly a drastic change, but I wouldn't expect anything less from the creators of Siren and Gravity Rush. Slitterhead is set to hit the PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on November 8th, 2024. Fans of Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and The Last Guardian should be familiar with who Fumito Ueda is. For those who don't, he created those three masterpieces with Japan Studios' Team Ico. After exiting Japan Studio in 2011, he formed a new studio called GenDesign, which was comprised of former Team Ico members. Alongside Japan Studio, they would finally finish and release The Last Guardian for the PlayStation 4. In the years since, GenDesign has been hard at work developing their next game. Back in 2018, the prototyping stage was just starting. By 2020, Epic Games announced to fully fund development with both parties splitting the profits in half. And in 2021, GenDesign's New Year's postcard featured Ueda's previous 3 games, as well as a screenshot of what is assumed to be concept from this new game. Since then, we haven't heard anything. In recent years, Sony has been going hard on adapting PlayStation's large catalog into movies and television shows. With the likes of Uncharted, The Last of Us, Twisted Metal, and Gran Turismo, Sony is showing no signs of slowing down. So a Gravity Rush movie may just be one of the most surprising reveals. Now, this doesn't mean new Gravity Rush games are coming, but it is great to see the series live on in a new form, let alone one from Japan's studio. All we know so far is that the film is set to be directed by Anna Mastro, written by Emily Jerome, and developed by PlayStation Productions and Scott Free Productions. It's still very early, but we did get concept footage for the film at CES 2024. And of course, we can't forget the number of PS1, PSP, and PS2 games being re-released through PlayStation Plus Premium. The possibilities are endless for what classic games we'll see each and every month. And a number of Japan Studio classics have been released, from The Legend of Dragoon, Jumping Flash, Ape Escape on the Loose, and so much more. If you have immense nostalgia for PlayStation's past, consider checking those games out. The loss of Japan Studio was a huge blow to Sony. Yes, they had their reasons. PlayStation's identity was changing, and Japan Studio didn't make the kind of profit or AAA experience Sony wanted. When you look at Sony's output of games today, sure, they're great games, but if Japan Studio was around, you just know they would have filled in those gaps. We would have seen support for the PlayStation VR 2, alongside smaller, enjoyable titles. However, it's great to see Japan Studio's legacy continue to be ever apparent. From Team Asobi and the masterpiece that is Astro to surprise sequels and re-releases of classic games, let alone the talent that made Japan Studio continuing to make their own games and successors. Have you played any of these games? What are you looking forward to? Let us know down in the comments. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified about future content. If you enjoyed this video, check out this other video on remembering Japan Studio's legacy. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.